Hello, everyone, on another fine autumn morning. It's cool. The forecast is for snow later in the week. And the growing season is definitely going to come to an end. I saw that the low is supposed to be in the 20s, the mid 20s. Get those wood stoves all fired up, folks. Well, just for a quick moment this morning, let's take a look at the alternate psalm reading for lectionary number 31. It's Psalm 107, and it looks at the first 7 verses and then at toward the end verses 33 to 37. And well, what's this psalm all about? This is connected to the alternate Old Testament reading with Joshua, and we're going to see where that comes into play in just a moment. But it was a hymn that was, it was kind of a back and forth type of hymn where the leader sings a part and the congregation responds. The leader sings and the congregation responds. And it's kind of cool, but it's a hymn of praise, giving thanks to God for his steadfast love. Yeah, it starts out that way. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Remember, that steadfast love is the word hesed in Hebrew. Very important word. Big time word in the Old Testament. Hesed. God's steadfast love. And it's translated many, many different ways into our English Bibles. I think just to give it a little bit of fun and play, but steadfast love. Keep that in mind. Now, as you have this call to praise, now the psalmist moves into a description of 4 different instances where God's steadfast love is rescuing people who are coming in to the temple from all different directions, specifically from the north, from the south, east to the west. And these different descriptions are kind of generic in nature so that you can try to fit yourself into it. Maybe one is helpful to you as a person. Here's an example. Some wandered in the desert waste, finding no way to an inhabited town. How does God answer that? He satisfies the thirsty, and the hungry he fills with good things. All right? So there's a description of the problem, there's a plea for help, and God answers it. Some sat in darkness and in gloom, prisoners in misery and in irons. And what happens? He shatters the doors of bronze and cuts in two the bars of iron. Some were sick through their sinful ways. And how does God answer that one? He sent out his word and he healed them. Some went down to the sea in ships while they were doing business on the mighty waters. And what happens? He made the storm be still, and the waters of the sea were hushed. So it's a back and forth. And so the leader would sing the first part, and the congregation would answer with God's answer to the people in distress. So it's a really neat community sung psalm of praise. Now here's where the Old Testament lesson comes into play. The alternate Old Testament lesson was about Joshua leading the people now into the promised land. They've been wandering in the desert for 40 years. Now they're moving into the promised land, but first they must cross the Jordan River. And you might remember the story where Joshua commands the Ark of the Covenant to be carried into the Jordan River, which is at flood stage at this point. So it's a pretty tricky, dangerous thing to be doing. But the 12 priests carried in there, and as they do, the water gets dammed up upstream and the river dries up so the people can pass through. So the psalm part of the psalm we're going to be reading that's at the end of this psalm is all about that. He turns rivers into a desert and springs of water into thirsty ground. Why? So the people can cross over. It's reminiscent of that time. It also goes back to Moses himself, as Moses led the people through the Reed Sea. And it describes that, and it comes to a crescendo at the very end, where once again the call is to remember God's steadfast love. Let those who are wise give heed to these things and consider the steadfast love of God. That amazing hesed of God. Boy, you can't escape it as you read through the Old Testament. You can't. It's there. It's everywhere. It's always been there. And that's what Jesus was basically trying to tell the people of his day. What he tries to tell us, what the Apostle Paul tries to tell us, God's love never ends. It's always there. If you're in trouble, you need some help, call to the Lord. He will answer, and he will surround you with his love and his care. God's blessings be with you today.